Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service. Shlok 24. Parthiva daruno dhumastasmad agnistrayimah tamasastu rajastasmad satvam yat brahma darshanam. Translation: Coal, fire, wood is better than raw wood, and fire is even better, for fire is the soul of Vedic sacrifice. Similarly, passion, rajas, is better than ignorance, tamas, but goodness, sattva, is best because by goodness one can come to realize the absolute truth, Brahman. Purport: As explained above, one can get release from the conditioned life of material existence by devotional service to the personality of Godhead. It is further comprehended herein that one has to raise up to the platform of the mode of goodness, sattva, so that one can be eligible for the devotional service of the Lord. But if there are impediments on the progressive path, anyone, even from the platform of tamas, can gradually raise up to the sattva platform by the expert direction of the spiritual master. Sincere candidates must therefore approach an expert spiritual master for such a progressive march, and the bona fide expert spiritual master is competent to direct a disciple from any stage of life, tamas, rajas, or sattva. It is a mistake, therefore, to consider that worship of any quality or any form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is equally beneficial. Except Vishnu, all separated forms are manifested under the conditions of material energy, and therefore the forms of material energy cannot help anyone to rise to the platform of sattva, which alone can liberate a person from the material bondage. The uncivilized state of life or the life of the lower animals is controlled by the modes of tamas. The civilized life of man with the passion of for various types of material benefits is the stage of rajas. The rajas stage of life gives a slight clue to the realization of the absolute truth in the forms of fine sentiments in philosophy, art, and culture with moral and ethical principles. But the mode of sattva is a still higher stage of material quality which actually helps one in realizing the absolute truth. In other words, there is a qualitative difference between the different kinds of worshipping methods as well as the respective results derived from the predominating deities, namely Brahma, Vishnu, and Hari. Shlok 25th. Bhejire munayo athagre bhagwantam adhokshajanam satvam vishuddham kshemaya kalpante ye anutaniha. Translation: Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the transcendental personality of Godhead, Bhagwan, due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worship him to become free from material conditions. Whoever follows such sages is also eligible for liberation from the material world. Purport: The purpose of performing religion is neither to profit by material gain nor to get the simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit. The ultimate aim of religious performances is to release oneself from material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. Laws of religion are therefore directly enacted by the personality of Godhead, and except the Mahajanas or the authorized agents of the Lord, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 particular agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion, and all of them render transcendental service unto Him. Persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajanas and thus attain the supreme benefit. Shlok 26. Mumukshavo ghora hitva bhutapatinaya narayana kalaha shanta bhajanti yana suyavaha. Translation. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly no non-envious, and they respect all, yet they reject the horrible and ghastly forms of the demigods and worship only the all blissful forms and plenary portions of Lord Vishnu. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is the original person of the Vishnu categories, expands himself in two different categories, namely integrated plenary portions and separated parts and parcels. The separated parts and parcels are the servitors, and the integrated plenary portions of Vishnu Tattva are the worshipful objects of service. All demigods who are empowered by the Supreme Lord are also separated parts and parcels. They do not belong to the categories of Vishnu Tattva. The Vishnu Tattvas are equally powerful living beings like the original form of the personality of Godhead, and they display only different categories of power in consideration of different times and circumstances. The separated parts and parcels are powerful by limitation. They do not have unlimited power like the Vishnu Tattvas. Therefore, the Vishnu Tattvas or the plenary portions of Narayana, the personality of Godhead, are never to be classified in the same categories with the parts and parcels. If anyone does so, he becomes at once an offender by the name Pasandi. In the age of the Kali, many foolish persons commit such unlawful offences and equalize the two categories. The separated parts and parcels have different positions in the estimation of material powers, and some of them are like Kala Bhairav, Smasha Bhairav, Shani, Mahakali, Chandika. These demigods are worshipped mostly by those who are in the lowest categories of the mode of darkness or ignorance, and there are others who are in the mode of passion and worship demigods like Brahma, Shiva, Surya, Ganesha, and many similar deities urged by the desire for material enjoyment. But those who are actually situated in the mode of goodness, Sattva-guna of material nature, worship only Vishnu Tattvas. Vishnu Tattvas are represented by various names and forms such as Narayan, Damodar, Vaman, Govinda, Adhokshaja, etc. The qualified Brahmanas worship the Vishnu Tattvas represented by the Salgram Shila, and so also some of the higher caste like the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas worship the Vishnu Tattvas generally. Highly qualified Brahmanas situated in the mode of goodness have no grudges against the mode of worship of others. They have all respect for other demigods, even though they are ghastly looking like the Kalabhairav or Mahakali, etc. They know very well that these horrible features of the Supreme Lord are all different servitors of the Lord under different conditions, yet they reject the worship of both horrible and attractive features of the demigods, and they concentrate only on the forms of Vishnu because they are serious about liberation from the material conditions. The demigods, even to the stage of Brahma, the supreme of all the demigods, cannot offer liberation to anyone. Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of penance to become eternal in life, but his worshipful deity Brahma could not satisfy him with such blessings. Therefore, Vishnu is called Muktipada, or the personality of Godhead who can bestow upon us mukti, liberation, and none else. The demigods, being like other living entities in the material world, are all liquidated at the time of the annihilation of the material structure. They are themselves unable to get liberation, and what to speak of giving liberation to their devotees. The demigods can award the worshippers some temporary benefit only and not the ultimate one. It is for this reason only that candidates for liberation deliberately reject the worship of the demigods, although they have no disrespect for any one of them. श्लोक 27 रजस्तमः प्रकृतयः समशीला भजन्ति वै पितृभूतप्रजेशादीन् श्री ऐश्वर्य प्रजेपस्वः. Translation: Those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance worship the forefathers, other living beings, and the demigods who are in charge of cosmic activities, for they are urged by a desire to be materially benefited with woman, wealth, power, and aristocratic birth. Purport: There is no need to worship demigods of whatsoever category if one is serious about going back to Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that those who are mad after material enjoyment approach the different demigods for temporary benefits which are meant for men with a poor fund of knowledge. We should never desire to increase the depth of material enjoyment. Material enjoyment should be accepted only up to the point of the bare necessities of life and not more or less than that. To accept more material enjoyment means to bind oneself more and more to the miseries of material existence. More wealth, more women, and false aristocracy are some of the demands of the materially disposed man, because he has no information of the benefit derived from Vishnu worship. By Vishnu worship, one can derive benefit in this life as well as in life after death. Forgetting these principles, foolish people who are after more wealth, more wives, and more children worship various demigods. The aim of life is to end the miseries of life and not to increase them. For material enjoyment, there is no need to approach the demigods. The demigods are but servants of the Lord. As such, they are duty bound to supply necessities of life in the form of water, light, air, etc. One should work hard and worship the Supreme Lord by the fruits of one's hard labor for existence, and that should be the motto of life. One should be careful to execute occupational service with faith in God in the proper way, and that will lead one gradually on the progressive march back to Godhead. Lord Sri Krishna, when he was personally present at Vrajadhama, stopped the worship of the demigod Indra and advised the residents of Vraj to worship by their business and to have faith in God. Worshipping the multiple demigods for material gain is practically a perversity of religion. This sort of religious activity has been condemned in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam as Kaitva Dharma. There is only one religion in the world to be followed by one and all, and that is the Bhagavad Dharma, or the religion which teaches one to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead and no one else. Shloka 28 and 29. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Makaha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriyaha, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapaha, Vasudeva paro Dharmo, Vasudeva paragati. Translation: In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, the purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. Purport: that Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship is confirmed in these two shlokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective, establishing one's relationship and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto Him. That is the sum and substances of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in His own words. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know Him only. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through His incarnation in the body of Srila Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls conditioned by material nature of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. No demigod can award freedom from material bondage. That is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. Impersonalists who have no information of the personality of Godhead minimize the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord and put Him on equal footing with all other living beings, and for this act such impersonalities get freedom from material bondage with great difficulty. They can only surrender unto Him after many births and culture of transcendental knowledge. One may argue that the Vedic activities are based on sacrificial ceremonies. That is true, but all such sacrifices are also meant for realizing the truth about Vasudeva. Another name of Vasudeva is Yajna, sacrifice. It means sacrifice. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that all sacrifices and all activities are to be conducted for the satisfaction of Yajna or Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. This is the case also with the yoga systems. Yoga means to get into touch with the Supreme Lord. The process, however, includes several bodily features such as asana, dhyana, pranayam, meditation, etc., and all of them are meant for concentrating upon the localized aspect of Vasudeva, represented as Paramatma. Paramatma realization is but partial realization of Vasudeva, and if one is successful in that atom, one realizes Vasudeva in full. But by ill luck, most of the yogis are stranded by the powers of mysticism achieved through the bodily process. Ill fated yogis are given a chance in the next birth by being placed in the families of good learned Brahmanas or in the families of rich merchants in order to execute the unfinished task of Vasudeva realization. If such fortunate Brahmanas and sons of rich men properly utilize the chance, they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons. Unfortunately, such preferential persons are captivated again by material wealth and honor and practically forget the aim of life. This is also so for culture of knowledge. According to Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items in culturing knowledge, and by such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non violent, forbearing, simple, devoted to the great spiritual master, and self control. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to health and home and becomes conscious of the miseries due to death, birth, old age, and disease. And all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim in culturing all different branches of knowledge. culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge in its various branches is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as ajnas or the opposite of real knowledge. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the term of material existence and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. So, prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience, but the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of bodily torture to achieve the end of sense gratification. Sometimes modern politicians also undergo severe types of austerities to achieve some political end. This is not actually tapasya. One should accept voluntary bodily inconveniences for the sake of knowing Vasudeva because that is the way of real austerities. Otherwise, all forms of austerities are classified as modes of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance cannot end the miseries of life. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Vasudeva and Devaki, the so called father and mother of Lord Krishna, underwent penances to get Vasudeva as their son. Lord Sri Krishna is the father of all living beings, therefore, he is the original living being of all other living beings. He is the original eternal enjoyer amongst all other enjoyers, therefore, no one can be his begetting father as the ignorant may think. Lord Shri Krishna agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki upon being pleased with their severe austerities. Therefore, if any austerities have to be done, they must be done to achieve the end of knowledge, Vasudeva. Vasudeva is the original personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. As explained before, the original personality of Godhead expands himself by innumerable forms. Such expansion of forms is made possible by his various energies. His energies are also multifarious and his internal energies are superior and external energies are inferior in quality. They are explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the para and apara prakritis. So, his expansions of various forms which take place via the internal energies are superior forms, whereas the expansions which take place via the external energies are inferior forms. The living entities are also his expansions. The living entities who are expanded by his internal potency are eternally liberated persons, whereas those who are expanded by the material energies are eternally conditioned souls. Therefore, all cultures of knowledge, austerities, sacrifice, and activities should be aimed at changing the quality of the influence that is acting upon us. For the present, we are all being controlled by the external energy of the Lord, and just to change the quality of the influence, we must endeavor to cultivate spiritual energy. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are Mahatmas or those whose minds have been so burdened as to be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna are under the influence of the internal potency, and the effect is that such broad minded living beings are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord without deviation. That should be the aim of life, and that is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. No one should bother himself with fruitive activities or dry speculation about transcendental knowledge. Everyone should at once engage himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, nor should one worship different demigods who work as different hands of the Lord for creation, maintenance, or destruction of the material world. There are innumerable powerful demigods who look over the external management of the material world. They are all different assisting hands of Lord Vasudeva. Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are included within the list of demigods, but Lord Vishnu or Vasudeva is always transcendentally situated. Even though he accepts the quality of goodness of the material world, he is still transcendental to all the material modes. The following example will clear that matter more explicitly. In the prison house, there are the prisoners and the managers of the prison house. Both the managers and the prisoners are bound up by the laws of the king, but even though the king sometimes comes in the prison, he is not bound by the laws of the prison house. The king is therefore always transcendental to the laws of the prison house, as the Lord is always transcendental to the laws of the material world. श्लोक 30 स एवेदं ससर्जाग्रे भगवानात्ममायया सत्सद्रूपया चासो गुणमया गुणो विदुः. Translation. In the beginning of the material creation, the Absolute Lord, in his transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy. Purport. The position of the Lord is always transcendental because the causal and effectual energies required for the creation of the material world were also created by him. He is therefore unaffected by the qualities of the material modes. His existence, form, activities, and paraphernalia all existed before the material creation. He is all spiritual and has nothing to do with the qualities of the material world, which are qualitatively distinct from the spiritual qualities of the Lord. श्लोक 31 तया विलसितेष्वेषु गुणेषु गुणवानिव अन्तः प्रविष्ट आभाति विज्ञानेन विजृम्भितः. Translation. After creating the material substance, the Lord expands himself and enters into it. And although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he is always fully enlightened and in his transcendental position. Purport. The living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities who are unfit for the spiritual kingdom are strained within the material world to enjoy matter to the fullest extent. As Paramatma, an eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and to become witness to all activities. While the living entities enjoy the material conditions, the Lord maintains his transcendental position without being affected by the material atmosphere. In the Vedic literature, Shruti, it is said that there are two birds in one tree. One of them is eating the fruit of the tree while the other is witnessing the actions. The witness is the Lord and the fruit eater is the living entity. The fruit eater has forgotten his real identity and is overwhelmed in the fruitive activities of the material conditions, but the Lord is always full in transcendental knowledge. That is the difference between the super soul and the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul living entity is controlled by the laws of nature, while the Paramatma or the super soul is the controller of the material energy. श्लोक 33 असो गुणमये भावे भूत सूक्ष्मेन्द्रियात्मभिः स्वनिर्मितेषु निर्विष्टो भुक्ते भूतेषु तद्गुणान्. Translation: the super soul enters into the bodies of the created beings who are influenced by the modes of material nature and causes them to enjoy the effects of this by the subtle mind. Purport: there are 84 lakh species of living beings, beginning from the highest intellectual being Brahma down to the insignificant ant, and all of them are enjoying the material world according to the desires of the subtle mind and gross material body. The gross material body is based on the conditions of the subtle mind, and the senses are created according to the desire of the living being. The Lord, as Paramatma, helps the living being to get material happiness because the living being is helpless in all respects to obtain what he desires. He purposes and the Lord disposes. In another sense, the living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord. They are therefore one with the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the living beings in all varieties of bodies have been claimed by the Lord as his sons. The sufferings and enjoyments of the sons are indirectly the suffering and enjoyments of the father. Still, the father is not in any way affected directly by the suffering and enjoyment of the sons. He is so kind that he constantly remains with the living being as Paramatma and always tries to convert the living being towards the real happiness. Shlok 34. भावयत्येष सत्त्वेन लोकान् वै लोकभावनः लीलावतारानुरतो देवतिर्यनरादिषु. Translation: thus the Lord of the universes maintains all planets inhabited by demigods, men, and lower animals, and in his play he assumes the roles of incarnations to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. Purport: there are innumerable material universes, and in each and every universe there are innumerable planets inhabited by different grades of living entities in different modes of nature. The Lord Vishnu incarnates himself in each and every one of them and in each and every type of living society. He manifests his transcendental pastimes amongst them just to create the desire to go back to Godhead. The Lord does not change his original transcendental position, but he appears to be differently manifested according to the particular time, circumstances, and society. Sometimes he incarnates himself or empowers a suitable living being to act for him, but in either case the purpose is the same. The Lord wants the suffering living being to go back home, back to Godhead. The happiness which the living beings are hankering for is not to be found within any corner of the innumerable universes and material planets. The eternal happiness which the living being wants to obtainable in the kingdom of God, but the forgetful living beings under the influence of the material modes have no information of the kingdom of God. The Lord therefore comes to propagate the message of the kingdom of God either personally as an incarnation or through his bona fide representative as the good Son of God. Such incarnations or sons of God are not only making propaganda for going back to Godhead within human society, their work is also going on in all types of societies amongst demigods and those other than human beings. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purports of the first canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Divinity and Divine Service.